Osinbajo's led Economic Council recommending fuel increase by the first week of February, which I think Monday from Benin raised that concern. And he said once that happens, he's thinking already, he doesn't know the statistics for inflation, but he's already thinking inflation is going to be high on the roof and all of that. What's your take?
Well, I think it will be a very huge mistake because, we talked about subsidy earlier. So for the longest time, we were talking about removal of fuel subsidy, and as much as we may say it's the right thing, but it's the wrong time. I'll give you an example. So for example, you're married, there's a woman you're madly in love with, both of you love each other, you plan to get married, and then for some reason she calls you up, oh, I need you offset now, leave the air, let's have lunch somewhere. And then first thing she says to you is that she lost her dad. And then the next thing that comes out of the mouth is, will you marry me? How do you think that's going to go? Was that the right thing to do?
Probably to replace her dad.
So was that the right thing to do? Yes. Was it the wrong time?
No, it was the wrong time.
Was the wrong time,
was the wrong time, which
thing?
made it the wrong thing to do.
Yes,
but up until then, both of you understood that that question was going to come. But it was the wrong time. That is how I see this entire conversation around hiking the fuel price, because you hike the fuel price, cost of transportation will go up, which would affect cost of food. Where people aren't earning as much.
Already affected cost of food.
So now we're talking about getting Gary for maybe 1.5. It goes to maybe like 3,000, 3,500. Yeah. And mind you, as of the middle of last year, when the entire thing jacked up, we had a lot of families who were, even before that, doing 2 meals a day, who had to drop to 1 meal a day. So are we not going to have families who are going to be doing 1 meal in 2 days? 2 days. Because we need to look at the actual practical realities of these policies on the lives of people. Not just coming out to say that, okay, the GDP is this, this number is that. Aside from the data, yes, data is good, but aside from the data, what practical realities are people facing in their day-to-day lives? Because we know for a fact, as part of the data that they like to quote, that over 90 million Nigerians live below the poverty line, which for me, I believe is conservative. With another, I believe 53 million being vulnerable. Now, vulnerable means that you can wake up tomorrow morning, Friday, and then you slip down there. And we know that we have a disappearing middle class.
Yes.
So are we being serious about how we're running the country? Because you want to increase the fuel price for what purpose exactly? To raise revenue. Revenue that what will be done with it? To be injected back into the system, into the educational system or security? We're not very sure.
Well, let me hear your thoughts on the increase.
What can we say? We've been hearing about this removal of subsidy for so long. What really makes me sad is the fact that this government cannot just take a position. Imagine if we bailed these cards the time they started touting it. People would probably have been adjusting to the realities now. Now that things are even more difficult, this is such a wrong time to even suggest it. No matter how good the intentions are, the people can never take it as positive. It's going to affect everybody negatively. Trust me.
And sorry, another thing with that is taking up the subsidy. The issue a lot of people have is now the money you're taking out of it.
Where is it going?
Where's it going?
Where's the money from subsidy going?
Because remember, we just talked about 380 billion naira being stacked along, and that is the culture of how our finances are being run. Yeah. So it's a different thing if we're very sure that the money is going to be injected back into the system,
into the economy,
where it's going to benefit our lives, and
we know it would. I was looking, now that we're even talking about 2023, that is where I wanted to just begin to look at. Because that seems to be the next hope that we have. This government is already running to an end, and we're about to have a new incoming. What kind of policies, like if you had the power to sway, like, oh, Mr. Diko Ewole is put on a committee and you have the power to be able to say...
The next economic strategy.
What, just, even if they want to steal it off you, we can give them that dash. What would you say a right-thinking, incoming presidential aspirant should be looking at to sell to us as a people as economic way forward?
Lola, I suspect that somebody's already contracting you as a media aide, and you want to begin to steal ideas.
Possibly.
You know.
But first, I believe that before we talk about the economics of it all, we need to have someone that we can trust.
That's a tall order.
Because there's a lot of trust deficit between the people and the government, and it's a chasm that has only grown wider and wider with this current government because of lack of effective communication. So, I mean, when you don't communicate, you leave room for a lot of speculation, which, I mean, so like you said, this particular administration is winding down, and we're not seeing a lot of difference from how things were when they started. But yes, before we talk about the economics, the question is, can we trust this person? So the trust is around what exactly? Can we trust that person with our economy? Because that directly affects our lives. Everyone. Can we trust that person with the education of our children because they are the future of our nation? Can we trust the person with our infrastructure? Because those are the things that make sure that we live with a certain level of dignity in our society. So can we trust that person beyond all the rhetoric? Because you can say that you look for people with sound economic advice. They can hire a brilliant team around them, give them good sound bites. They come for the debates. They tell you all you need to hear. And then they get into office. And then it's all out the window. But the question is, can we trust you, irrespective of whatever it is that your team has been able to research for you? Can we trust you with our lives? Because enough really is.
But let's say, yeah.
Are you one of those that actually share the opinion that we really need like a difference in our politicking now, that you think that younger people can actually do that?
In answering that, also sandwich it with this. Let's say the trust is there, and then you're talking about strategies, economic strategies that would grow the economy and grow the nation at large. You know, what would be your pointers?
Okay, yes. So with regards to the younger aspirants, I believe for me, competence also matters. Competence also matters. It's not, yes. So we need fresh blood. We need younger people in political office at various levels, but we also need competent people. It's not just about the age now, because I see a lot of us having to get carried away with, okay, you want younger people in office, and then we're not looking at competence per se, which for me is very key, because you get there, you're not competent, then you make a mess of the place, and then the other folks come to say, oh, you wanted a young person in office.
Yeah, see.
So understanding that the implication of you being in office means that you open more doors or you shut the only one door that's been made available. So that is why we need to also look at competence as a very key factor. Back to your question about...
your point is economic strategies.
Economic strategies. I believe that in Nigeria we've had different economic strategies without us addressing a lot of the underlying issues that we have. What about education? What about issues of security? Because whatever economic policies you have or economic strategies that you have, when people can't go to the farms, when people can't conduct their businesses safely, you get grounded out economically because there's a productivity being injected into the system. So whatever policies you're making without security being firm on the ground, they'll make a nonsense of it. How about we look at the education? Because having an educated populace means that we have a better chance of having a more productive population.
That because don't you know that poverty is weaponized? Because if you're asking them to educate the people, you're asking them to be emancipated.
See, poverty has been weaponized effectively as well.
Oh, yes.
It's been very effective. So that's why, back to your question where you said if I had the authority or if I was in a room where we could talk about these things, that's why we had to address it from that foundational level. Because we also need to understand that an emancipated mind is a mind that has a lot of potential to be productive. It's not just about going through the four walls of a school. It's not about getting into polytechnics or universities. No. There are a lot of nations of this world where they don't even necessarily encourage their citizens to even go on to higher institutions. It's Nigerians that end up going there and then get all the master's degree, PhDs, and all of that. But it is important that we understand that when we're talking about economic policies or building a strong economy, we need a very vibrant, productive workforce. Understanding that we also have a nation where close to 70% of their population is a youth population, which means they're a productive population. Creative. But how much are we harnessing that particular resource, aside from the natural resources that we have? So how much are we harnessing those resources to see that they are actively engaged, and then we can gain productively from them?
Talking about countries and governments, we've barely seen the Nigerian government do anything differently. Pre-COVID-19, we had the trader money, we had all sorts of programs meant to alleviate the poverty in the country, And then post-COVID-19, while you're trying to get things done, Kike is up and running in Abuja and trying to make ends meet. Lolo is hitting left, right, and center. We've really not seen so much from the government of the day trying to say, look, we'll put in this to cushion the effect and to have a robust economy.
Pardon me for chuckling, but you remember in recent time a report came out that there were 460 duplicated projects in the budget, going to the tune of 380 billion naira. So I think that in itself answers the question, because if you have a serious leadership anywhere around the world, would that be what we're having to grapple with right now? 380 billion naira duplicated projects. Now, those are the ones I believe they were able to discover. There were some that must have fallen within the cracks. But 380 billion naira would solve a lot of our challenges in power, in healthcare, in security, in education. Mind you, all of these line items are already listed, have already been accounted for legitimately in the budget.
In the budget.
So now I'm saying this bonus money, per se, that may be what you budgeted for all those line items or those peculiar challenges that we have in this country. How about we add them to it? But that's not what we're seeing. I mean, at 460 projects for 380 billion naira, let's assume all the projects cost the same thing, an average of 800 million naira. And then you find out what the projects are, and then it's going to be maybe sinking 2 boreholes somewhere where they're not going to have a working pumping machine, or you have the boreholes working, there's not an overhead tank for 800 million naira. So practically what we've seen in various levels of our government are people who aren't very deliberate about making sustainable change in the lives of people. I'm not sure if they really understand what the objective of the objectives of their offices are, but so far I don't see them being very serious about this issue of leadership, because we've seen different leaders around the world where people are being deliberate about leadership, how people are different palliative programs, seeing how they can open their economies up. I mean, in the Middle East, for example, there are different countries that erstwhile they seem to be a bit shut off from the world. Maybe women weren't allowed to do certain things. No. Now they're being flexible about certain things because they have practical economic realities. So everybody is trying to adapt. The way we talked about businesses earlier and individuals trying to adapt and having to come to the realization that, you know what, every opportunity has to be seized to ensure that we grow economically and we survive and thrive as a nation. Unfortunately, those aren't the things we're seeing in Nigeria. And for me, it really begs the question of what are we really doing? Because part of the factors we need to look at for an economic outlook for any nation around the world is global competitiveness. Do we have leaders that see Nigeria being in a competition against other nations? Because either we like it or not, we don't exist in a vacuum. We exist within the Committee of Nations. But are we being competitive? Are we saying that in the next 5 years, this is what we want to do? We want to invest in this. Yesterday, I saw a news report where someone in the government, can't remember the person's title now, said that by the year, try to get this right, I think year 2026, that Nigeria will then surpass Ghana and another nation in cocoa export. Look at where we're coming from with cocoa. Now we're talking about this in 2022.
And in 2026,
that in 2026, that's when we just want to surpass Ghana.
Pathetic, if you ask me.